Welcome to The Balance Dilemma, a series of discussions about career and family, whether women can be both happy mothers and successful professionals. Is this a modern possibility or just urban legend? I'm Christie Derrico.
And I'm Maura, Carlin. Christie and I have discussed this issue over the years. We realize that precisely the same issues have been discussed since we were girls, long before careers, marriage, and children, and before either of us truly understood the dilemma.
Women do have more career opportunities than they did a generation ago, but the struggle is no less real today. Some may say it's even greater now, as women are expected to achieve personal and professional satisfaction.
Nor is this topic restricted to women. Men, too, are trying to figure out work-life balance. And family obligations affect all who are caregivers, too, the young, the old, or just someone needing help.
In this, our first discussion, we focus on what we, individuals, society, business, and government, need to do or change structurally to empower women, foster balance, and support those managing work and home life.
Our panel is Johanna Zeilstra, known as Yose, an entrepreneur and founder of the womensdebate.org, Cynthia Lobo, an attorney, Jennifer Graziano, an attorney and business owner, and Suzanna Keith, a digital media expert.
Jose recently wrote in the Huffington Post, "Today, more women than ever before are graduating from college, entering new professions, and running for public office. Yet, women continue to earn less than their male peers for the same work and are more likely to be poor and are increasingly exploited both physically and sexually. Every year in the United States, somewhere between 2 million and 4 million women are assaulted by their spouse or partner. Has the battle for women's rights been won?"
Jose, what is the women's debate and why do we need it?
The Women's Debate is a nonpartisan platform that's calling on a live presidential debate on issues that are affecting women in this country. And to date, when we've looked at all the transcripts of all the debates, we only found 6 of the more than 700 questions asked that focused on women outside of Planned Parenthood and abortion. And there's so many issues that we'll discuss today that impact women and girls in this country that are not even on the radar in this election. Issues such as pay, equal pay, to affordable child care, to health care for women. For example, there's at least a dozen women per day dying of cervical cancer. There's the personal safety issues, college assault and domestic violence and human trafficking in this country. Even the media and how they portray girls and exploiting them in the media and online. There's just a vast array of issues that are not being discussed, and we want to put those forward. So our platform is really curating questions to help the candidates say this is what women voters care about, and we obviously are half the population, and we end up voting more than men. So we need to have these questions out there.
So, Cynthia, you have identified yourself as a representative of Latina population. Would you say these issues are the same, or are there different issues in that population?
I think we, as Latina women, share all the issues that are common to women in this country. But in particular, my concerns for Latina women is that that they are still incredibly underrepresented in terms of how people look at their issues of education, employment opportunity, affordable health care, child care that they need, preschool assistance so that they can move forward. And I think that that nobody is really talking about Latina issues, and yet it's 2016. Hispanics are the largest growing minority population in the United States, on target to be 28%, almost 29% of the United States American citizenry by 2060, and yet people don't seem to be discussing the issues. And I'm very concerned about Hispanic women in particular, because we are single heads of households, and we are the breadwinners in many parts of the United States. So I think there's issues that have to be dealt with, and I think this is wonderful that we are talking about it and bringing this issue to the forefront.
Right, talking about it hopefully will bring change. One thing that we've noticed, Maura and I, when we've discussed this topic, is that in interviews of successful women or prominent women, they always are asked in some version or another, how do you do it? And amusingly, you don't see that same question being asked of men in a similar position. So ladies, how do you do it? Susanna?
You know, I think it's really interesting. I think, you don't. You have to make choices in your life. You have to choose, do you want to be at home? Do you want to work? Do you want to have a career? Do you want to work out? And you have to have a support system. It really takes a village, and I believe something that I've really seen over the last 17 years is groups of women rising up, and whether it's a professional working moms group or the women's debate, women rising up and really mentoring and helping each other with their careers. And I think that that's definitely something that's very much a positive, because I think the trends that I've seen, having been involved in local politics, is women move local races. Who women vote for, women's votes really count. Women's issues really count, whether it's sustainability or the family or safety or education. I think hopefully now it's time for that to be at a national level. And that's why I'm so excited about the women's debate, because I think we have to ask these key questions. It's very important.
Jen, how do you do it?
I think you recognize that it's a work in progress, at least I do. And you can have it all, but you can't have it all at one time. And I think if you go in knowing that, you also surprise yourself at what you can accomplish during the day. I always say failure is not an option, so if I have a laundry list in front of me of tasks that have to be done professionally and personally, you just do it. You find a way. And, to speak to what Suzanna said, I am finding in the professional circuit there are so many organizations growing from the ground up of women entrepreneurs supporting each other, women's business networking events, women's business groups and coffees and discussions and circuits and lecture panels, because we recognize that we are a unique population. I mean, as much as we want to integrate with the males, we can segregate ourselves because we have a balancing issue that doesn't necessarily present on the other side. So I think raising awareness, building support are just ways that further help us achieve a balance.
Well, playing devil's advocate with that, isn't it one more thing to do or one more thing to go to? And
Yes.
Is it good to segregate women from men?
I go back and forth on it because I grew up and I thought the sky was the limit. I never saw myself as not being able to do anything that a man could do. I'm in a male-dominated industry. In fact, I'm the sole lone wolf female. So I think when you go through life without the barriers and you set out to achieve a goal, whatever the goal may be, you don't pay attention as much to the male versus female. But you do, it's a double-edged sword. You have to stop at some point and recognize that there are issues affecting us that need to be addressed, and that's where you come in, you say.
So let's talk. Go ahead, Susanna.
I just want to say too, networking with other women is really food for your soul.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's something that women, we don't do well enough. I was just having this conversation with a friend of mine today. Men go on the golf course, they make deals, they have constant networking. We as women need to make sure there's more time for networking in our lives, whether it's meeting a friend for coffee or talking about the kids, or even because you learn. We need to help each other to learn and grow. And I think that's really critical, because when we meet more women in our fields and in our professions, that will help advance all of us, and it will help advance all of our causes. And one of the things that actually I've been working on with Jose is starting a women's innovation group, which I think in order to make America continue to be great, we need to innovate within our companies. And whether it's an advertising company or a media company or a tech company, we have to all be Googles in our own way. I have to come up with that next innovation about how we're going to solve problems, how we're going to make the work-balance life issue easier for people. That's a huge challenge. And I think we're going to start this networking group in Westchester and Fairfield County. We'll see how it goes, and I hope people will check it out on a meetup. You can look for Women in Innovation WIN, and Jose is going to be one of our speakers coming up. And the women's debate is going to be an important issue and topic for all of us.
Well, I guess my family's approach, I'm the third generation female business owner. My grandmother was a caterer, my mother was in computer science, and then I've been in the law. But we had more of a grassroots approach, start your business at home as the children grow, and then maybe go outside the home. And what I've loved about meeting Jose and Suzanna and other women here at the table is seeing how each of you in your own way has developed your own business, and in different ways. Do you see yourselves today in the position that you thought you would be in when you started your careers? Or has that changed, and in a good way, a bad way? What do you?
No, I thought I'd be in the corporate world forever. When I started, way back when after graduate school, I thought I'm going to sit here for life, but the world changes, right? Mm-hmm. And once I had my second son, I just didn't fit the corporate lifestyle anymore. I didn't want to be on the early morning train commuting to the city, coming late, home late. And I felt like as long as the structure is there, I'm not going to be able to be effective at home. So that's how I decided to become an entrepreneur. I'm married to an entrepreneur, and he certainly taught me a lot about what it takes, because it's not easy, as many of you know. But I think it's been very rewarding, and I think what it's given me, because I'm not working any less or fewer hours, but it's given me flexibility, and I think that makes the difference. Where I couldn't find that flexibility in the corporate space, I think you can find more flexibility in an entrepreneurial space.
Who among you are your own bosses?
I am.
Most of you.
Most of us.
And is that because of flexibility or the ability, to make it work?
I was guided by this book, Mompreneurs. Well, other than my family background, this book, Mompreneurs, basically advocated for women doing their own little business while being mothers. And it was I've heard these women, the authors speak many times, and funny little anecdotes about how that works. But being self-employed definitely helps in easing that balance. That's my opinion. But I did see the panel discussion that Jose and Susanna put on, and there were women, younger, older, moms, not moms, and I found it very interesting. They were advocating for being honest about your time and where you are. Because at this day and age, you can work anywhere. I have lied, I admit it. I've lied for many years about what I'm doing. I've been in a bathroom on a telephone call and would not admit that I'm hiding from my children in the bathroom. So is that the direction we're going in? For men and women, maybe being more accepting to flexible work hours and things of that nature, and
well, I think you almost have to, especially look at us in 2016. Look what the country has just gone through. I mean, a lot of people lost money and they lost jobs in 2008. I started out many years ago. It seems like a lot longer than it really is, practicing law, and I was raised in a way, first generation Hispanic American. I was always raised in my own family to embrace those great American values. That is one of the things that new immigrants bring to this country, is that love of the United States and that optimism about entrepreneurship. So I always thought I was going to be my own boss. It turned out that I was. And I think that has given me all the flexibility I have wanted, that independent spirit that I was raised with, and I think I find in a lot of women. I also find women, and this is no offense to men, but I think women are a lot braver about jumping out and taking a shot with very little sort of behind you, and looking at life like everything is ahead of me. So I think the flexibility of being an independent, an entrepreneur, running your own job, is something that we pick because I think in many respects, some of the best things I love about my women friends and my new friends here is that freedom, that spirit, that can-do gutsiness.
There's 1,200 businesses being opened per day by women in this country.
And Hispanic women, let me just pitch for them too. They're bringing in $71 billion a year in entrepreneur revenues into this country, Hispanic women. And so, I mean, and they're doing it out of necessity because they have to, but this is the kind of thing that I think women bring. They bring a fearlessness, and we're not as afraid to work without a net as some people might think.
Is it in part that the corporate world can't find a way to make it work for women?
The rigidity of the corporate world, I
chokes
think, and the
people.
confines is choking. I mean, my life didn't work out as planned. My daughter was about a year old, and I was a single mother. But from 6 months, she was in the carrier with me, and she was in the office. And while sometimes I would say I feel so guilty, as she was growing, like she's here with me, but I was grateful for the flexibility. It allowed me, my career has grown tremendously since my daughter's birth 4.5 years ago. And that's largely attributed to the fact that I had the flexibility to have her with me. I wasn't going to sacrifice my time with her, especially as a single mom. I mean, she's my priority, always will be. But I was able to grow because I had that balance of being with her and then having the proper caregivers in place. So flexibility that entrepreneurship brings, it increases productivity, it increases creativity, and it gets women in a happier place. If you can break out of the confines and that rigid corporate world, women have more opportunities, and they're starting to find that, and you're starting to see the shift from the train commutes to, you know, the home offices or the local offices.
And actually, I would say to that point too, Jen, I think what's really interesting is just coming more from the corporate side and being on the train and knowing so many women who are. I think what's happening is now corporations are realizing that they have to think about things differently. You know, IBM is out trying to recruit more women and more minorities. A lot of Pitney Bowes is doing that. A lot of companies in our area, because they realize that you have to kind of come up with a new corporate model of what success is. And so sometimes there's days where you can work from home, or days where you might have a meeting and you can do a little bit more flexibility. I think a lot of corporations now have the attitude of get the work done. It doesn't matter when you do it. You know, just make it happen. And corporate America has to be able to flex and mold. And you see so many companies recruiting women back into the workforce. You guys are probably familiar with iRelaunch, where a lot of women can take that 10-year break, and whether it's law or business, and go back to Morgan Stanley or go back to JP Morgan or wherever it might be. And I think that's really great to see. And getting on the train, you know, it's fun because you can also really have great networking in the morning. You know, you find that friend and you chat for 20 minutes, or you get a lot of work done, or you meet for a drink on the way home, and then you can really have great productive time.
You know, and I think we have to thank women who came ahead of us for making these big changes in corporate America, because this wouldn't have just happened just on its own. It's not like, you know, suddenly the light goes on and, oh my God, there's a recognition that there are women and families coming into the workplace. I think women have really struggled to say, we have to really, if we're going to say that we really embrace American family values, and we embrace and welcome everybody into the economy fairly and equally, that we have to acknowledge the fact that what it means to be a family now, what the workday looks like. You know, two parents out, single parents working as part of the economy. Everybody has to acknowledge that life has had to change, and we owe a lot of thanks to the women who've come ahead, who've gone ahead of us, and to the women who are here now, saying that, by the way, there are still issues that very much are on the table and very much need to be discussed now.
From when I took my recent position 6 years ago, we've had two prosecutors who went through pregnancies and then nursing afterwards and had to pump. And needless to say, our current facilities do not have a pumping room at all. And we had to roll with it. And my co-judge is a male, and we did. We found accommodations, and these two ladies were able to keep on the job, and it was just great. I think we were mutually very proud of each other for accommodating a situation. And those things are great to see, that women can stay in the workforce.
So what other accommodations or changes do we need, either structurally in business or societally?
If I may say one thing that's really important is I think that we need to lift up those women across different industries more, because I think there's a lot of women in tech, there's a lot of women in digital media in particular, where that was an area, ad tech, where for a while men didn't want to be there, and now it's like the hot place, and there's a lot of women who have done great things, and I think we need to really kind of lift those women up more as role models. I also think that we need to have more mentoring. I think so that women, you know, can understand the resources that are out there, you know, especially with young women, because, you know, whether it's entrepreneurship or corporate America, we need to show them that the path can happen, and that they can be part of the path, and that their thinking is critical. I think those two things that corporations need to have, kind of like that onboarding mentoring system in place. Because ultimately, a lot of people say in business success, you really do need to have that mentor who kind of really looks out for you. And some people find that naturally. I think sometimes men do a better job of that. I think women, we need to maybe potentially put more programs in place to do that.
And even starting younger, I think, too, getting into the schools and getting, you know, getting the spirit alive in young girls, and even going into the junior high schools, the high schools, and preparing these women for the world they're going to face when they get to college and beyond. And I think we need to catch them younger, make them aware of the challenges that they are going to face, and send them out into the world with a heightened awareness. So starting mentoring younger as well.
And that means having, for a lot of, there are a lot more single women and single women running families now. And women are still, across the board, making less than men in this country. All across the board, there are very few CEOs. They're not making it to the boardrooms. But they're not going to make it to the boardrooms if we don't start early giving them the opportunities, the educational opportunities that they need, which means means that for single mothers who are working, God bless you, were able to take your baby to work with you.
Yes.
There are some women who aren't going to get that chance. So
You're right.
preschool is really important in this country, giving those kids an opportunity to have good, safe, educational opportunities, exposure to other things, opportunities to go to good schools that are well funded with qualified teachers. This starts really early. I mean, we're all whatever age we are, but I think we're all the product of loving parents. Probably none of us went hungry, and probably we all grew up in sort of fairly decent neighborhoods that were safe. There are a lot of women in this country who don't have that chance, and this is affecting the next generation big time.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to reiterate the whole affordable child care, because
Yeah.
a lot of women just cannot afford to go to work. I
Right.
mean, they just can't afford it because the child care is so expensive. So I think that's a key ingredient
In the
to
long
keeping
term, yes.
women in the workforce, because if they don't stay in the workforce, or if they off ramp and then come back, they lose so much pay. They lose so much in pay and promotion and advancement that they wouldn't have if the companies were able to keep
And the
them.
cycle continues then.
Yeah.
You just can't break the cycle.
Yeah, we've discussed that. I think it's good for women. It's good for your psyche, even if maybe you're not working full-time for a period, but just keep your foot in the water.
Well, you never know, right? Your
Yeah.
husband or your partner
That's
could,
right.
could die, or you get divorced, or there could be so many other, or an illness. There's so many things that could happen in your life that you don't plan on it, right? This is a plan B. So, how are you prepared to be able to financially support not just yourself, but also your family?
Well, I love this conversation. I want to say thank you, and welcome to The Balance Dilemma. And I'm Christie Derrico.
I'm Maura Carlin, and it's really just the beginning of a discussion. We hope you'll join us for our next forum exploring happy mothers, successful professionals. Is it modern possibility or urban legend?